So I played Pokemon for 24 hours and beat the game. Probably. Since that stream was likely gonna leave me pretty drained, I actually wrote up this video in advance. That also didn't leave me with a lot of time to script stuff and edit stuff out though, so this one's gonna be a lot more casual, mostly anecdotal. So I did a 24-hour stream for Extra Life. Extra Life is a volunteer group that works with Children's Miracle Network to raise money for children's hospitals. Every year, participants pledge to game for 24 hours in exchange for donations. Pretty simple. I've been doing this for a few years, and more than fundraising, I've also volunteered to help out at events to try and find more participants and drive up engagement. And hey, I get free admission to conventions now and again, which is a nice little treat. As you'd probably figure, most of these experiences have been pretty cool, but there's been a few times people have gotten a little weird, so that'll be what this week's about. Just a few odd stories from when I helped out with Extra Life. This might be a little weird to hear, given that this is a Mega Man channel, but in our guild, I'm known as the Nintendo person. I'm always showing up with whatever the latest console is, with the latest releases, and this is especially true for Smash Bros. That's one of the best games to draw attention to our stands, since not only is it widely popular, but it's also fun for all ages. Be kinda weird to be trying to draw people in to help out kids, only to display a game with gore or sex appeal. Typically, we'd use my console, since not only was I the one most likely to have all the current DLC, even Mii costumes, but I also come with a plethora of controllers and was just generally considered the expert on the game. Once we were at a convention in its first year, and there really wasn't a ton going on, not even a gaming hall. That led to a lot of people stopping by our stand to play a few rounds, and seeing the interest, our guild leader decided to host a tournament. The format was left to me, which put me in a bit of an odd situation. We definitely had some serious players signed up, but there were also a few kids that wanted to play, so I wanted to balance things so that everyone could have fun. While I could have just left items on, this was back during the Smash 4 days, where the right weapon spawning in your lap at the right time could pretty much decide the whole match. So I decided to get a little creative. For items, only those in the original 64 game would be turned on, and stage select would be random, with only stages from Melee. And you have to believe me, I was trying to keep things light but still fair, but even I have to admit things got a little silly when a Kyogre popped out of that Pokeball. Still, I thought the rule set kept things fun, or at least I would have, if we didn't have so many try-hard participants complaining. There was one in particular I remember, a teenager who kept whining about items, yet was always the quickest to pick them up. To a degree, I understand. If you're looking for a fist fight but everyone else is bringing guns, you'd be a fool not to have one yourself. It just struck me as funny. It would have driven me crazy had he won though. Instead, he came in second, and a kid dressed as Link took top place, which we were pretty happy about. Overall, it was a pretty pleasant weekend, and the venue was very generous with us, giving us a nice chunk of change towards our fundraising goal that year, so we were pretty happy. I suppose the lesson here is that there's a time to be sweaty. I can certainly appreciate putting your all into a game when the stakes are high and you have the passion, but it's also good to just read the room and maybe learn when you should just have fun. After all, even if you win, you'd probably end up looking pretty silly going all out against smaller competitors. And hey, if you lose, the items give you an excuse, so you're welcome. Oh, and in case you're wondering, I didn't participate since I was running the thing. If I did though, I would have wiped the floor with all of them, except for that Link. We also do tournaments when we have the 24-hour events as a group. Getting everyone together to compete can really help keep us awake and going, so they serve a practical purpose as well as just being fun. The one year in particular, we had 2 sets with some kinda funny stories. One of the tournaments was Mario Kart, which I'm sad to say I'm not great at, but my dear brother Sam is actually pretty darn good. Due to an inside joke, he played using the fabled Pink Gold Peach, and in an early round, became one of the forerunners on the competition. This led to one guy whose turn hadn't come up yet to question why he was doing so well, which caused me, feeling a bit mischievous, to say that it was because he was using Pink Gold Peach and declaring that she was the meta. I thought it was obvious that I was joking, but I'll admit, with my more monotone voice, it can be a little hard to tell. When this guy got the controller in his hands, he went immediately to our girl, and wouldn't you know it, he did not last long. My brother, on the other hand, wound up going the whole way and coming in first, so shout out to him. One of the other tournaments we ran that night was ARMS. I'm actually a big fan of the game and its stretchy punches, and really wish the title had done better, but that's its own topic. The guild leader and I actually took a trip out of town that year to promote at a con far outside our zip code, and while we were there, in between days, I got him to try it out and he really liked it. He suggested that we do it for one of our competitions for the big event and had pretty sound logic for doing so. I had the game set up for motion controls and he scheduled it for around midnight, so getting people moving around then could really help keep them awake. There was one major problem though that I pointed out, that ARMS is the sort of game that you need to spend some time with to understand how to even play it. While I offered to let people get some practice in before we began, very few took me up on it, and we started with not many signing up, maybe only my brother, who I don't even think took part, and the guild leader having maybe a half hour of playtime in, and me, by far, being the most experienced. That didn't stop some people from trying though. Remember that guy I mentioned earlier? He was back and looking up tier lists as the rounds got started. The internet told him Master Mummy was the way to go, but I easily won the whole thing with Twintel. And in my defense, I did pull my punches a lot. I didn't even use my specials. I still felt kinda bad about the whole thing, like I was kinda being a bully. But hey, it's ARMS. Do you know how rarely I get to find anyone to play the game with me? You can't just expect me to turn down an opportunity like that, even if it was incredibly one-sided. The last story takes place at the same convention that the first one did, 1 year later, and oof, is it a doozy. The organizers had really stepped things up that year, getting a much nicer and air-conditioned venue, with a lot more to do, and they were kind enough to invite us back. We were once again quite popular. Smash Ultimate had come out and we had a pretty nice setup, with a lot of controller options, and were right by the door, making it easy for people coming and going to spot us. The intent was to entice people in with Smash, have them play for a round or two, then chat with them a bit and maybe get them to sign up before they moved on. Instead, what we got were campers. A group of guys assembled, largely unaffiliated with each other from what I can tell, but with the shared goal of playing a lot of Smash that weekend. At first it was wholesome, everybody getting along and one guy even helping a younger player learn the ropes. And then they just didn't leave. Even with 8-player Smash on the table, with there being 5 or 6 of them crowding around the TV, it made it a little intimidating to approach the stand. It kinda made it so that we got a lot less attention than we were hoping for. Understand though that this was half on us. We could have put a sign up, imposed the match limit, dropped hints some other way, or politely just said something about them moving along. While these guys could have done a better job of reading the situation and moved on to other things, they were all polite and seemed nice enough, so I don't want to cast any shade and feel the need to take a lot of the responsibility. The next day, someone else set up their Switch, no Smash Bros, and instead queued up a game that people were less likely to spend a lot of time on. The same people showed up and asked if we would be doing Smash again, to which we said, not today. They fiddled around with whatever we had up, and then, after a bit, exited back to the menu and started up another title. Some Steven Universe turn-based RPG. Despite what I said, that part does seem a little rude. I do not remember how that day ended, but I think we got control back at some point. Third day, we're using my console again, and this time we put up Cuphead. My theory was that Cuphead's fun and colorful enough to draw people in, but hard enough that no one's gonna wanna play it for too long, just standing around getting their butt kicked in public. We start up a new file and let it be for a bit. At some point, I run off for something to eat and am gone for 30 or 40 minutes. When I come back, I take my position behind our table and see a young kid playing the game. I peer over the TV to see how he's doing, and he's fighting the devil, the game's final boss. When I left, there hadn't been much progress on the file, it still being on the first aisle. I really doubted that some wizard had come by while I was gone and gotten all the way to the last fight. Heck, that'd be a pretty tight window even for an expert, so I asked the kid, as calmly as I could, if he maybe exited out and used one of the other save files. When he replied in the affirmative, I, again calmly, asked him to please go back to the file we had loaded previously because the current one was mine and I didn't want it getting messed up. If it had been someone older though, that probably would have been my breaking point, because as anyone who plays games will tell you, the one thing you do not mess with is another person's save data. I was able to vent a little bit later when I switched the station to arms and one of the campers came back. I let him play a few rounds, then, when it seemed like he was setting in for the long haul, I stepped in and completely destroyed him. It was really immature of me, and I'm embarrassed recalling it, but it did have the desired effect. Anyway, we got a few new signups that weekend, a few people gave us some donations, and I picked up a Dragon Ball figure that I still have and really like, so it was still a good event, just a bit frustrating at points. I also, half-jokingly, said that the con should just have us run the gaming hall next time because, while there was one that year, it didn't seem like enough people were making use of it, and having extra TVs and stations would have done a lot to fix our situation. It's been a few years and COVID kinda shut down conventions in between, but if we do it again, we really need to think things through better, because our methods were kinda weak and passive-aggressive. Yeesh. A little worried that last tale entered into the mean-spirited territory. I feel like that was just an unfortunate situation where a group of socially awkward people hoped that another group of socially awkward people would take a hint, despite one side not being good at dropping them and the other not good at picking them up. I've been doing Extra Life for years and it's been almost all positive. The charity's really transparent, so you never have to wonder where your money's going, and it's pretty unobjectionable, raising money for sick children. And hey, gaming for a full day is pretty interesting. It's all good folk too, so it's a great way to meet new people. I'd highly recommend it to anyone who's looking to get involved with a charity and enjoys games. My fundraising page will be in the description, and from there, it should be one click away to get to the main page if you want more information. For now though, I'm tired, so thanks for watching. I know this isn't my typical content, and next week should be business as usual.